Ready? So I'd like to call to order the council for the Town of Annapolis Royal Council meeting, May 21st, 2025. It's now 6 p.m. We have four of the council members present and one absent, which is Henry Boye. The mayor has taken a well-deserved evening off and no absence. Are there any additions to the agenda?
So I have one addition under 16.3. 16.2. 16. Yep, 16.3 in camera plans to buy, sell, or lease property.
Okay, great. So just a couple of announcements to start. Our internet is fluctuating quite a bit. We've already been kicked out at least once from the meeting, so we apologize in advance if there are problems. There will be one intentional stop of the streaming so that we can go to a in-camera session after item 11.1C. No, that's right. In order to allow a key participant to be present for that part of the meeting and then leave, we'll then reopen the meeting to the public and continue until we go to the second in-camera session and then complete the meeting. Are there any disclosures of conflict of interest? None declared. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes?
Yeah.
Any amendments or corrections? All right, then we'll consider them adopted. There are no presentations and no members of the public present to provide input. So we'll move right on to new business and begin with the quarterly finance update.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. And I assume you can see my screen. So this is where we ended the year and we have our final audit on Monday. So as far as revenues, the taxes, they were flat. Grants in lieu were for the most part flat. Services to other governments, our Triton, our criminal record checks came in 23,000 below, but that was offset by the sewage bill to the county was higher than we expected. Conditional transfers to properties. This is the transfer that we do from our operating reserves, and we didn't have to bring in 173,000. So we thought when we passed this budget, your predecessors, that we would have to bring in 324 to flush it out. We only had to bring in 151. License and permits fees are down, or sorry, they're up, and that was because our building fees came in above budget. Our fines were what they were. We budgeted 8, they only came in at 45. Our rental lease sales, we thought it would be around 50,000, came in at 45, and that's because we literally did get no revenue from the wharf. We usually get around $5,000. Return on investment are what they are. Penalty and interest, almost double what we thought they would be. Concessions and franchises, 126.4 versus 163.33, and this is D-transfer came in 26,000 above where we thought it would be, and also there is 17,000 in Valley Waste refund from the previous year that the auditors agreed we could put in this year because it came in after we had been audited. Unconditional transfers are flat. Recreation down a bit because one of Noah's grants that he applied for he didn't get. And marketing is up because after we passed the budget, we got the crime prevention grant, beautification, civil forfeiture, and the MIP, and none of those were included in the 214,969. So overall, our total revenue was less than what we budgeted, but that's because for the most part, the operating, we didn't have to bring money in from the operating. So it came in at 3.18 million. Are there any questions on the revenue? And this is nothing new. You've seen all this before. Now the expenses, remember also this is unaudited, so it could slightly change. So legislative 173,288 versus 156,394. So errors and omissions were lumped into a liability insurance of $4,000, and we didn't spend our engineering money that we thought we would. General administration 220 versus 224. Salaries were up slightly, and that's due to one of the positions at Christmas time we brought them on. 4 days a week as opposed to 3, and the other one was travel was up. So taxation 64 versus 38. Those are things like things that didn't get done. We didn't get the painting of town hall done or an old coal chute fixed, and our oil costs, heating costs for the building were down. General administration 40 versus 34.9. The Heritage Award money, that $2,500 that's been kicking around for several years, still was not dispersed. If it's not dispersed in the current year, we're just gonna absorb it or bring it into income. Protective services, police 503 versus 522. So that's 12 of that is a crime prevention grant that's included. The revenues included up above, the expenses are here, and also police salaries were up from what we budgeted. Law enforcement 11 versus 10, pretty much flat. Fire protection pretty much flat, 166.8 versus 168 flat. Emergency measures 69 versus 10,842, and that's the commissioning of a new generator for the warming place at the hub. And then trees, animals, pretty much flat, 26.9 versus 24.4. Common services for transportation 180 versus 161, and those are small variances here and there. There was painting of the Public Works building that didn't happen. And there's a mixture of salaries going on. Some go to planning, some go anyway. Some go to water, some goes to sewer. The salaries were down in this category. And we did have some people leave that we, and brought new people on. Road transport 623 versus 639. This is the salt. We spent a lot more salt than what we budgeted. Then we have the sewer. 243 versus 200,000, and that's maintenance to the sewage lagoons, was below budget. I think we had tucked away 80,000 or something. We only ended up spending like 58 or something. And then garbage collection, that's flat. Recreation 84 versus 78. So Noah's facility maintenance budget was below or his actual expenses were below budget. And again, the grant up above he didn't get it. So the expenditures weren't expensed below. Marketing 50,009 versus 71.6. That's a beautification grant of 21,000. The revenue's up above, the expenses are here. Cultural services 22,653 versus 26,2, and this is the library costs, and they're coming in higher than what we had budgeted. Economic development, well, we have an MIP, we have an economic development coordinator, and there's almost 40,000 in there for that. The comfort center costs are coming in below budget, and that's probably because we didn't have a VIC there last year. The fiscal services 68 versus 63. Well, the bank service charges are below because we had to pay for a check scanner, and we had a lot of problems with it, getting it set up when the bank closed last year in town. So they refunded us. They gave us the money back for that, and that was a few $1,000s. Transfers to owner reserve flat 257 versus 256. Unconditional transfers 292 versus 259. So the seniors housing and correctional services were included in the 292, but we found out after we had passed this budget that we weren't going to have to pay for those. So I tried to keep it as close to zero as I could. We've got looks like we have a small surplus of 1825. So any questions on all of that? None of that's really new. I've shown it to you every quarter.
Yeah.
So are you okay with that? And I can move on to the,
Yes. Yeah.
okay. So I'll stop this share, and now I'm going to share the capital. If I can get this moved over here, and then I share this. So this is the capital budget where we ended the year. This includes the water and the water capital and the general capital. So the facility playground, we budgeted 100. At the end of the year, we'd only spent 78. So there's a little bit of money that we tucked away in this year's budget for that. The lift stations, the wetlands, and Riverview Drive 17 versus 14. The town hall, a new commercial panel, pretty much flat, 5 versus 47. The solar panels came in a little tiny bit higher. I think that's due to some HST. The radios for the police budgeted 22, they came in at 19.9. The new police car budgeted at 69, it came in at 70. The new side-by-side budgeted at 57, came in at 51. And more lift stations, another lift station at the wetland, the retrofit 30 versus 33.8. And the gas tax, we gave 30,000 to the pool. And a new water meter reader. That's the only capital water expense we had last year. And that was budgeted at 18.2, so it came in at 18,177. The water main saddles are no longer happening. So we had an overall budget of 508 and we spent 453, so slightly under budget. Any questions on any of that? I know I'm going really fast.
Clear.
Okay. So now I'll go right into the water utility.
Yes, please.
Okay. So let me get that up and go back here and share my screen now for this. Okay. So why won't it let me go up to page 1 here? It's weird. Oh, right. Okay, so this is the water utility. We had budgeted for a loss, and you probably wonder what, but we did. We budgeted for a loss because there needs to be a water rate study done for our utility. Our rates are not high enough to cover the expenses, and they haven't been for several years. So we thought we'd have revenue of 397.8. It came in at 394.2, just slightly below. And that's just due to a little bit of commercial sales up here. Came in a little bit lower than what we thought. And the interest came in slightly lower. We thought it'd come in at 86, it came in at 78. Then our expenses, our main source of supply, that's our inventory that we count every year. We had a lot more inventory on hand this year than we had the previous year, which costs us money. And this is our fee that we pay to the county to buy their water. That's the share of operating maintenance costs. Nothing really here stands out, except the chlorine plant repairs that came in above. The water safety regulations, we had to spend a fair amount of money on water safety and OH&S. I do know that somewhere here, right here, the Lakeel water storage tower. So there was a failure of one of the pressure tanks. There's 3 of them. And at the Lakeel water storage tower, this is where there was a failure. So the system provides water pressure to Lakeel customers, and the tank which failed is critical to the system. So we had to do that repair. We could never budget for that. And then if I go to this next page, admin salaries again are up, and we knew they would be because we brought someone on 4 days a week as opposed to budgeting them for 3. And just general, a few little things here. It says general office expense 18 versus 12.9. A lot of the safety is included in that. And those are things that, so of the 100% of this building here that we're in, 35% of it gets pushed over to the water utility. So if we had higher expenses here, it would show in the water utility as well, and it does. And then we have other expense building, 25 versus 21. I always look for those two to be about even, and they are for the most part. But the salaries and the OH&S and the Lakeel water storage tower, those are the things that caused it to be higher. So we planned for a loss of 37,275, but the loss came in at 55,213. And that's where we'll end the year. So I always look at our year-to-date surplus, and our year-to-date surplus, I think, is around 118,000. It'll absorb the 55. We'll still be in a surplus, but we won't have much of a surplus left. So it's time to do a water rate study, and you will see the water utility and water capital budgets at the committee of the whole in June, I'll be presenting those to you. And again, this is unaudited. I don't expect any changes though. Any questions on any of that?
No, no.
Good. I'll have questions about the water rate study, but when we get there.
Thank you very much, Melanie. So this is the point at which we'll go into a brief in-camera session. We'll be going under section 22(2) of the Municipal Governance Act, and we'll be discussing labor relations and contract negotiations. We expect that will take about 10 minutes. And we will restart the live stream once we're completed. So may I please have a motion to take us in camera and
I'll move to take us in and take us in.